Hello Truth Seekers, I wanted to do a quick video talking about my current understanding of the Creator's set times, or some people call this calendar, but I prefer to call it set times, I guess, because I don't see the word calendar in the scriptures. But there's a lot I'd like to talk about, but I'm going to save that for, I guess, other series. I'm going to come out with other short videos kind of talking about specific points that I think people need to ponder and study kind of one at a time, because things are just so closely intermingled. I don't think people are they're just two or three topics or facts coming in at the same time. They kind of process one and then miss the other two kind of thing. So I'm going to try and do videos talking about each point one at a time and see, maybe I could be wrong, but I'm going to try and share what I know and invite feedback, and hopefully we all grow together in love. But anyway, my current understanding of the Creator's set times for the Gregorian year 2019 through 2020 is primarily based off of Genesis 1:14. And if you take nothing else away from Genesis 1:14, I encourage you to realize that Genesis 1:14 says that He gave us the luminaries for at least the concept of years. I believe that's the last thing in that verse. Said signs for days, for seasons, and for years. So years, a lot of different groups out there, these Zadok groups, have been trying to say that time is independent from the witness of the heavenly luminaries, but I want to try to encourage people. I think Genesis 1:14 at least clearly says that the concept of a year, is tied to the witness of the luminaries. And I just had another thought, so on that note, like, people are saying time is independent of the luminaries, and I just want to share some thoughts I've been having lately. I don't think this is so. Like, I think it's really quite clear what the year cycle is. If we put Genesis 1:14 in action and, just look to see how the luminaries define the year, I think it's clear that there's a 4-season year cycle. It's not fractions of seasons, but it's a 4-season year cycle. And lately, it's just been occurring to me, the words springtime, summertime, winter time, seed time, harvest time. Like, these are concepts associated with the seasons and, what some would call the agricultural calendar. But I do think it's very simply, it is what people call the agricultural calendar. I think it is the Creator's calendar. But the agricultural things on Earth are just a reflection of what the luminaries are doing. Like, seasons only happen because of the position of the sun in the sky. Like, if you're in the northern hemisphere, when the sun is directly overhead in its northmost position, you're going to have summertime. And then when the sun is in its lowest position on, at say midday, solar noon or whatever, but when it's farthest away in the south, then you're going to have winter because the sun is farther away. And it's like opposite depending on if you live in, South America or North America, and the seasons are reversed. But anyway, I think it's quite clear from Genesis 1:14 that at least the concept of year has to be defined by the luminaries, and it's not this abstract number cycle thing. And I think it's just very clear that there are 4 seasons in a year. And I try to stick mainly with Genesis 1:14 because there are some people out there who have trouble with writings like Enoch, But I think if you do think Enoch is a credible source to dip into for more confirmation, I think Enoch does confirm this pretty clearly. In multiple places. The 4 seasons in the year, he talks about that. If you look at some of my other videos on my channel, it's a screen capture I've used as the thumbnail from a video. I think it's either chapter 84 or 82 where he describes the year. And see, that's one of those things. Like I'd like to make individual videos on solar months to try and raise an awareness that a solar month I don't think is just the 30-day month plucked out of context that people are applying to these different intercalation calendars. A solar month has the witness of the luminaries. Likewise, the year. Enoch describes what a year is, quote unquote year. What is a year in the mind of Enoch? And like I said, a year in Genesis 1:14 is defined by the witness of the luminaries. So a year in Enoch, in multiple places, he talks about what a year is. And it's that the one verse later on in chapter 82 or 84, talks about how the year has 4 portions separated by the 4 seasonal days. And it seems quite clear, that's spring, summer, winter, fall. Like, there are 4 portions to the year. And I mean, so the year is important. That's one topic I'd like people to try and think about and pray about is, we have clear definitions for what the year should be, and it's not some independent thing. There are many luminary signs that accompany it, and it's very simply evidenced by the cycle, the 4-season cycle of the year. So the other important thing is solar months, and this is something that I think Enoch is very clear about. It's not 30-day. It could have been in his day. I'm still not sure exactly what's going on with that. But I mean, solar months. That's a topic you don't hear much about. I don't think almost anywhere. I tried Googling it, and it doesn't seem to come up. But I mean, it wasn't until I read Enoch that I even kind of became aware of a solar month. Like, I don't see the modern science talking about solar months. But Enoch was enough to give, that tip. But even without Enoch, I think you can start, if you just put Genesis 1:14 into action and you started to watch the luminaries, I think you'd realize, the year is split up into 4 seasons because of the position of the sun. Likewise, months, there are subdivisions of the seasons, and there are 3 months per season, solar months. And regardless of what the number of days are in the year, you still have the cycle of solar months. And I'm going to say this while I'm thinking about it real quick. People try to say you can't do this because it's going to shift your seventh-day Sabbath. I just see no reason. I currently don't see a reason why the seventh-day Sabbath needs to shift. It could. I'm open to more discussion, but I've heard 2 main schools of thought on why they think the Sabbath shifts, and both of them I think mainly have to do about an assumption about where the sun and the moon were during the creation event, and both of these 2 different schools of thought have assumed the sun and the moon are in 2 different positions for either of their assumptions. So it shows me that it's that I don't think we can hang our hat off of that. It's an assumption. We just don't know, and one position has a logical thought process for why they think the sun and the moon should be that way for the creation event, and the other group thinks, that they have a good reason, explanation for why they think the sun and the moon should be in that position. So I don't. That's a big thing that I think people have used to try and take away from what I'm trying to share by saying, we can't do that. It has to be this independent number cycle, because otherwise you'd shift your Sabbath. And I don't see the necessity for the Sabbath to shift. I'm very open. Please share your thoughts. I'll look into that. But I just think the Creator was very clear, and he said, this is a sign, 6 days you work, 7th day you rest, and he doesn't say anything about ever breaking that cycle. Like, it doesn't say at the end of every month, you've got to readjust your Sabbath, or at the end of every year, you've got to readjust your Sabbath. He didn't say that. The only thing he said was 6 days you work, 7th day you rest. And so I don't see that for people who try and use that to say don't listen to what I'm saying. I mean, I hope no one's doing that among the truth-seeking communities, but don't let that discourage you from listening to what I am saying. The 7th day Sabbath, I think, is always going to be that 7-day cycle. I think that's a sign that the Creator set up, and it's 6 days and rest on the 7th day. So anyway, I wanted to touch on that because I know that's something people talk about. But so solar months, year, year being simply comprised of 4 seasons. That's what we see. That's the year cycle: spring, summer, winter, fall, or whatever. Spring, summer, fall, winter. That's the cycle. And people try and leapfrog around this year cycle. And it's so plain in front of us. And there are luminary signs that confirm it. If you should check out some of the things people were doing for the spring equinox this year. Check out my summary video, and I kind of mention everything and everyone that I was able to keep track of. But there are witnesses clear witnesses from the sun, multiple witnesses from the moon, and I do believe even witnesses from the stars. But I need to look into that more, and I'll share thoughts with you if I'm able to figure anything out on that, because I think it just has to be, unless there's some kind of misalignment going on because of different stories, and like the sun standing still. It said sun and moon stand still, Joshua's story. It didn't say anything about the stars. And likewise for Hezekiah's sundial, the sun returned. It doesn't say anything necessarily about the moon returning or the stars returning. So it's interesting. So I'm not sure about that. But this past year, it seems like there were a lot of people confirming signs from the sun and the moon. And I'm just curious to see if there are confirmations from the stars as well. But that's putting Genesis 1:14 into action, and I think there's enough to determine the year cycle based off of Genesis 1:14. If someone was diligent enough to look up and start understanding the patterns of the Creator's luminaries, I think the year cycle becomes quite clear. I think Enoch, the information in Enoch just kind of helps. It talks about the same things you look at. Other than that, solar months, so the first day of the year is the first day of the first solar month. It's the day following the spring equinox. That's how Enoch describes it. I think modern science actually says it might actually mix the first day of the season with the sign, the spring equinox, but Enoch says it's the day following the sign. And if I don't know if you're in the boat where you're looking at what modern science has to say about it, but on that specific point, I do side with Enoch that the first day of the new season or the month or the year is the day following the solar sign, not the day of, because you kind of need a day to process that and prepare. But anyway, so as far as the first day of the year, I think it's simply the first day of the solar month, first day of the season of spring, which would be the day following the spring equinox. And I believe there were multiple witnesses, sun, moon, and I heard some people talking about stars, but like I said, I need to look into that more. But then lots of people confirming the witnesses from the sun and moon from all kinds of different locations on Earth. And I think the consensus may have been that the multitude of witnesses, people confirming, I believe, seem to have been pointing to the 20th being the equinox. If you have data that suggests otherwise, I've asked for people to present this. I have Facebook groups dedicated to collecting this data And I'll add links to the description below my YouTube videos with people's data if they want to contribute their data. But so far, it seems the majority of witnesses observed the spring equinox 2019 to have happened, I believe, on March 20th. So then the first day of the year would simply be the day following the spring equinox. The first day of spring is the first day of the solar month. And so then all the Creator's spring holy days can be counted from there. The first day of the first month, all of the spring and summer holy days, from Passover to Pentecost, or the Feast of Weeks, can be counted from that timestamp. So then moving on to, and I think I might try and have a screen capture of a calendar I put together, just showing the dates, color-coded maybe. I'm going to try it in Excel this year, but maybe I'll have a link in the description below this video for a place you can get that calendar in Excel. But as far as the fall holy days goes, again, there is this concept of solar month, and I don't think people are seeing it. They think they can just take the 30-day month cycle. It is a solar month talked about in Enoch, but they think they can just take that out of context and say, hey, 30 days, that's what the month is. And I don't think it's wise to do that, because they're losing the luminary witness if they just pluck it out of context and tack it to a new day that they want to be the first day of the year, leapfrogging around the spring equinox, looking at the moon or a specific day of the week. And then their months start to wander throughout the year, and they don't have luminary witnesses anymore. But I think Enoch described the month cycle, solar month cycle, having a witness from the sun. And this I haven't really figured out a good way to measure the month cycle of the sun. The only way I can think of to do that off the top of my head would be to actually monitor it over the course of a year, and then you would eventually see where the divisions. I mean, you could figure out where with a tall enough sundial you could see where the sun has to be, which portal, which gate it has to be in for the different months of the year. Oh gosh, what was I gonna say? So that's 1 month at a time, but I think there is an easier way, and it goes back to Genesis 1:14. And remember, months was not in Genesis 1:14, but he did mention years. And years is an increment we can work with. And as far as the fall holy days are concerned, and even look at that, like, people just call it the fall holy days and spring holy days, and they don't realize what they're saying. Like, it's so simple. Like, it is, these seasons are the divisions of the years, and this, these are springtime. Like, it's time related. The seasons are time related. It's not something independent from time. Like, there's a seed time and a harvest time. Like, these are very much time concepts. Anyway, first day of the 7th month is the way we are familiar with an important timestamp being described in the canonized scriptures. So, we can count all the fall holy days from the first day of the 7th month, but there's another way to think about that. And if it's the first day of the 7th month, another way to think about that is it's simply the first day of the 7th month is also going to be the day following the last day of the 6th month, right? The first day of the 7th month would be following the last day of the 6th month, and possibly, like the intercalary days. So if you think that the Creator's calendar or his set times has to do with solar months, please listen to what I'm saying. Solar months you cannot just pluck the 30 days out of context and try and run with it. Solar months are accompanied by a witness from the sun, a position of the sun in the portals of heaven, and like I said, you can learn to measure individual months, I think, by actually building yourself a big enough sundial and watching to see where the sun is over the course of the year, and it'll hit different markers, even the month markers. But an easier way, if you don't have that much time, is the realization that the solar months divide that year cycle. Like I said, Enoch, in the beginning of Enoch, talks about in meticulous detail the cycle of the sun in chapter 72, and then later in chapter 82 or 84 or whatever, it talks about how the seasons, which are a result of the sun, it's a bigger increment, so it goes year, seasons, months, but it talks about how the seasons divide the year into 4 parts. And so the first day of the 7th month can also be thought of as the first day of the second half of the year, or the first day of fall. Like solar months, you gotta understand solar months. Like, you've got the seasonal days, equinoxes and solstices, the days of equal light and darkness, and the longest and shortest days of the year, and these divide the year the quote-unquote year, into 4 parts. And the first day of the 7th month would be the first day of the 7th solar month. It would be the first day of fall. It would be simply the day following the fall equinox. Like, this is the sign. Coincidentally, it's the end of the 6th month moving into the 7th month, but it's also the end of the summer season moving into the fall season, and it's what splits the quote-unquote year. And so that, as far as my understanding of when the fall holy times would be, the set times of the Creator for this fall 2019, that is still something I'm working on. Maybe that's why I've had a hard time to put out this summary of the Creator set times. I want to also mention first fruits while I'm thinking about it. If anyone has any thoughts about that, let me know, because I think there's a part 1 of first fruits that I made a couple of years ago where I kind of just wound up saying it seems like the canonized scripture have an absence of information on this, so I'm going to go with what the Dead Sea Scrolls say, which was the 26th day of the first month. But I think I leave it at the end by mentioning a bunch of questions I had, and one of the questions was, well, if it was supposed to be the 26th day of the month always, why wouldn't the Creator have just said that? Like, it's he says the 14th day of the first month. He gives us the day of the month for all these other events, so why wouldn't he say it for this event as well? And so just share your thoughts with me, and I'm going to make a short video specifically on that, but if you can, let me know your thoughts on that, because I've called into question the authority of the Dead Sea Scrolls, as I see many doctrines in the Dead Sea Scrolls being doctrines that Yeshua debunked, and I've got a video series on my channel playlist saying testing the Dead Sea Scrolls, and that's an ongoing series, and I'm open-minded, but check it out, be aware of that. But anyway, so I want to make sure I don't just base my understanding of first fruits simply off of what the Dead Sea Scrolls said, and that was 26th day of the first month. But on that note, keep in mind that I think the Dead Sea Scrolls are just like a lot of them are commentaries and interpretations and then doctrines of men, and so they kind of do the same thing we do, except it was just 2,000 years ago or whatever. But I mean, so they may have looked at the scriptures and come to that understanding based off their understanding of the scriptures. And there is one thing that I noticed in Leviticus 23 talking about first fruits, and that is the timing of eating bread or not eating bread. like with respect to first fruits. I think there's a verse that says, ye shall not eat bread or parched corn or green ears until the self-same day thou hast brought an offering, which I believe it was talking about first fruits. But the thing is, bread, it didn't say unleavened bread. So, like, you can't, it says you shall not eat, bread, raised bread, until the self-same day you brought an offering, first fruits. So that seems to tell me that first fruits can't possibly be during the week of unleavened bread. It seems to be telling me it has to be after, which would seem to suggest maybe it does have to be the 26th. So maybe that's how, the Dead Sea Scroll, the Qumran guys interpreted it, possibly. But I just want to double check that, see if I can get people to confirm that, or, is it possible the Sabbath being talked about can it come out any other way? I guess what I'm trying to say is it seems like it might be safe to rule, based off of that, it seems like it might be safe to rule out the possibility of first fruits happening during the week of unleavened bread, based off of that verse that talks about eating bread, because you can't eat bread during the week. The only context that we have around there for not eating some kind of bread until a certain day would be raised bread, and so it seems to suggest first fruits has to be after, whether it's the seventh day Sabbath after, or simply the day after the last Sabbath at the end of unleavened bread. I think might still need to be confirmed and could potentially change. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on that. But I wanted to include that thought. But back to the fall equinox. Excuse me. The first day of the 7th month, first day of spring, first day of fall, and all the creators' set times can be counted from there. The question is, though, when is the first day of fall? And we're learning. I was very happy to see truth seekers a lot more truth seekers out this spring trying to confirm the creator's times by measuring and observing the movements of the heavenly luminaries. I think that was great. So I hope we'll see more of that this fall. But there's a lot of questions still in the air, and people. I think some people are still wondering about if it's a 364 solar cycle, or 365, or 366, or 365.25. And so I think there are still questions out there, and so as I think, and I plan on trying to confirm the fall equinox again this year based off of observation. And I know there are others out there who will be trying to do this as well. I believe Squirrelly Nations is pretty passionate about this, the YouTube channel Squirrelly Nations. He's been doing some good work trying to confirm the moon. The track of the moon, and I still need to process his data, but I think he has some videos out where he's recording data of the moon going through portals and how the moon just races through portals much faster than the sun does. But anyway, I believe he'll actually be trying to make confirmations, actually both of the upcoming summer solstice and equinox events, as will I. Hopefully others will as well. But my point about the fall equinox is it's hard to say when the fall equinox will be, with all the different schools of thought floating around. I think we're still learning. I think we're still in pioneering territory, and the only way to be safe is to actually confirm it again by looking at the signs that the luminaries give. And I think there'll be certainly a sign from the sun, the straight line pattern, or any of these various other methods. The only thing I would say is put yourself in the shoes of the ancients, and everything you have to do to collect your data to confirm this solar event, make sure there's a way that the ancient people could have done it as well. But I think potentially we may see a sign from the moon as well, the portal alignment. I think there's a possibility the portal alignment might occur again. Just search my YouTube channel for a discussion on portal alignment. Jerry Morris's channel had a great video showing this spring equinox, how the moon aligned with the sun, this great portal alignment. I think when I read Enoch, it seems there's a possibility he might be saying the moon will do this in the third and fourth portals. So saying third and fourth gates makes me think the moon or sun has to be heading one way for it to happen in one portal, and then the other way for it to happen in the other portal. So that's why I think it might possibly be both spring and fall, but it might not be. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. I think you can take a peek in Stellarium to see if that's going to happen, but ultimately it'd be good to confirm that via actual observation. And then the stars. I really think there's something about the stars, and I'm going to check that out in Stellarium too preliminarily, but of course eventually also via physical observation. But when I read Enoch, it just makes sense. There are leader stars, and Steve, formerly with 119 Ministries, I think his name is Matria, he put a video out, calendar update, I think, Things Explained. It was a week or two ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and he brought up a lot of interesting points about how things might be a little out of sync. So I don't think the sun and the moon are out of sync based off of what I saw this past spring, but I do wonder what's going on with the stars. And Steve pointed out, in the story of Joshua, sun stands now still, moon stands still. It didn't say anything about the stars. So, and also for the story of the sundial of Hezekiah, it didn't say anything about, they said the sun moved back, didn't say anything about the moon or the stars. So I don't know if they all moved together, because it seemed like the moon and the sun were still in sync, regardless of the story of Hezekiah. It seemed like they were in sync this spring. So maybe the stars are too. But anyway, I'm just not sure. I have to look into the stars. But I do believe Enoch talks about the stars. There's going to be a star, and I think it's going to be a specific leader star that rises or sets in the same portal, in a specific portal, the equinox portals. Anyway, all of that, I hope people will get out there to confirm, but once it's confirmed, the day following will be trumpets, and then the 10th day following will be atonement, and you can count the holy days per Leviticus 23 from there. But I want to mention, I took a quick peek. I asked Google when the fall equinox was for 2019, and Google looks, something fishy seems to be going on with what Google is projecting. It doesn't seem to match anything. It doesn't seem to match a 365 day, 366, 364, 365.25. It just doesn't seem to match anything. I think I'm going to have a picture in my spreadsheet with the day that Google is proclaiming to be the fall equinox. I think I'll have that highlighted in red, but it just doesn't, the counting, just from what multiple witnesses have confirmed the spring equinox to be, it doesn't seem to be matching. What Google is saying really doesn't seem to be matching anything. So just as far as understanding the creator set times for this fall, I think it's going to have to wait until we get the luminary witness, at least for my current understanding and for me in my house at this moment. So I think that's about it. That is my current understanding of the creator's set times, and I'm very open to iron sharpening iron, truth-seeking discussion. But like I said, I think there's a lot of stuff we have to still test. We have to be diligent to test. This Dead Sea Scroll stuff, all this Zadok stuff seems to be sweeping this sector of the calendar worlds, and I think there are some discontinuities. Like recently, I did have one of my viewers come forward and acknowledge, and that's kind of what I've been looking for. I kind of wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy and what I was seeing, these differences between Enoch and Zadok. And, it just seems like all the leaders of the Zadok communities out there just say Enoch, Enoch, Zadok, Zadok, Enoch, Zadok, as if they're all the same thing. And from what I can see, they are not the same thing. They are very different. Enoch doesn't say anything about having to start the year cycle on a specific day of the week. And just doing that disturbs the entire set times calendar. Everything shifts based off of that. So they are completely different calendars. And so, I mean, I've just heard the leaders of these Zadok groups trying to say it's the same thing, and like I said, I think they're missing subtle differences. They're not understanding what a solar month is, because if you ask people in these, or they used to, maybe they're moving away from that, but if you ask people in these Zadok calendar camps what their month is based off of, I'm pretty sure they're going to say solar month, like they think it's a solar month. But if they're just taking a 30-day month, this is not going to be a solar month. I mean, and it won't make that much of a difference for the start of the year in the spring, but by the time you get to the fall, based off of what seems to be happening with the luminaries, like this 364 or something greater, it seems potential you're going to be one day off. If you just stick with a 30-day month, by the time you get to the fall, there's going to be potential for, I think, depending, we'll see. We'll observe, we'll confirm, we'll look for the signs. But I think it seems there's a possibility that the solar months are not exactly 30 days anymore. I don't know what's going on with that. It's similar to how it seems Enoch talks about a 364-day solar cycle, but it seems that cycle is actually longer. Maybe 365 or 366 or 360, something else. And so by the same chain of thought, and of course we have to observe and confirm this stuff, but by the same chain of thought, the solar month isn't this nice crisp 30 days either. And so by the time you count 6 months and you get to the 7th solar month and you get the sign of the fall equinox, you're gonna be, I think, a day off. It's gonna be a day off. So just food for thought. Be aware of that, look into that. But what was I saying? Zadok community. But yeah, I had one of my, well, I've seen them on my channel, but I guess I was having a discussion. I think it was on the Zadok. It was on Jerry Morris's channel under the Clearing Up the Confusion video. I was having a conversation with Ezra. I think their email or YouTube channel's name is Ezra something, and they acknowledged, like I said, I've been looking for someone to acknowledge, to see if I was crazy, if I was the only one seeing these differences. And like, I see a difference when I hear Zadok and I hear Enoch. I think of two different calendars, and I think most people think they're somehow the same, but I do not think they are. And it seems the leaders of the Zadok calendars are telling everyone, yeah, they are the same. Or it's, even this person I'm about to talk to called it the backbone. But there are these words and these links, and I mean, maybe they are linked in some ways, but if you're, like I said, if it seems based off of the criteria that they need to start their calendar on a specific day of the week, it changes the entire calendar, so they drastically different. But this one individual, the Ezra, actually acknowledged they believed Enoch and Zadok to also be different from each other. And so that's pretty much like the first time I'm hearing someone else acknowledge that. And I'm glad to hear that acknowledgement. I mean, because it just, that's not to say they're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and they're wrong, but it's just, I've had this question, and I've wanted to see if anyone else is seeing what I'm seeing, or something else, or I mean, at least that they're different. And this individual has confirmed they think they're different. So if the Ezra individual is watching this video, please feel free to leave a clarification in the discussion below this video. But we can discuss things onward. But I think that's it for now. This video is getting long enough. I really I'm sure I started this video out by saying it was going to be a quick summary, but doesn't always turn out that way. Maybe I'll make a quick video that's like only 2 or 3 minutes long without all this explanation, Just for people who are looking for the quick answer, I'll make another quick video just explaining a summary of my understanding of the Creator's times. But that's it for now. Let's work out our salvation with fear and trembling. This is pioneering territory, but I really think people need to pray about the concepts of solar months and the concepts of what is a year. How is a year defined? And I think Genesis 1:14 says the luminaries were given at least for years. And so you better be looking for a luminary sign to confirm the year, because if you have to do something independent of the witness of the luminaries, like arbitrarily pick days left to right of the sign of the luminary, then I think we're in trouble. So that's it for now. Shalom, my friends, and may Abba bless you as you continually seek out His truth in love with a pure heart.